Alright, what's going on everybody, it's Liam here, and welcome to today's video on the channel. And in today's video, I have a commentary for y'all, and I want to talk about the state of level 160 PvP. And I've gathered a lot of the community's feedback in this video, not just some of my own criteria. As you guys know, in videos like this, I typically talk to other members in the community, other content creators before I make this video. And before I even get into anything, I just want to put like a little disclaimer at the start here. Obviously, if you are a new viewer around here, or if you're not, I am a little bit biased towards Storm in this video. I did manage to get to the #1 spot this season again on my Storm, so that was pretty freaking cool. I think I went like 100 wins and like 11 losses, so really good on the Storm this season. I don't think my school, which is obviously Storm, is bad at all in this current state of PvP. I think this is the best Storm has ever been in the history of Wiz, at least for max level, in my opinion. I just think comparatively to the other schools, it's just still obviously not where I thought it would be when Ratbeard released the win rates, as you guys can see on screen right now. But yeah, I obviously, like I said, I'm a bit biased towards Storm. I think it's really good right now. I'd argue like top 3, top 4 in the meta, and let's get right into things. So the first thing I want to cover in today's video is the fact that school identity is just completely out the window. Now, what are you talking about when you say school identity is just not there, Liam? Well, I'm talking about, you know, for example, Myth not having any minions when it's literally the minion school, you know, dude? Or, you know, everybody is using Betrayal and Delusion right now. And that kind of takes away from Myth, right? If you like that trap identity, you can just do that on literally any school now. You obviously have the 2 damage schools in terms of the Shambo, which is supposed to be Death and Storm. But the issue with this is the fact that the other schools that are not damage schools, they pretty much hit the damage cap. If they don't, they're extremely close, uncomfortably close, and they have thousands and thousands more HP compared to some schools like Stormfire and Myth, right? So what happens in a result of this is every player pretty much plays the same. They all just buff up and hit, and they don't care whether they're a DPS school or not because they already have so much damage, right? There's no point in being afraid of like a, I don't know, like a double buffed S'mores if you can double buffed, you know, Caddy and heal off, you know, like a quarter of that, you know? Or there's no point in being afraid of a double buffed Solka when you can double buff a bomb for half of their health as well, right? There's no really synergy between damage schools and defensive schools. So it's very minor and nitpicky at this point, but I do think it is something incredibly important to bring up that is contributing to the meta. Next point I want to talk about is Shambo. Now, a lot of players, primarily long-time PvP players, do not like Shambo. Obviously, this is no secret. They think Shambo ruined PvP. And at least in my opinion, I actually don't think it did. I think it balanced PvP pretty well. But I think the issue is that King Sal's leaning too hard in the direction of like hard counters and stuff like that. And it makes some matchups just absolutely unwinnable. And they're also just not really enforcing a lot of these things, you know? They're not really enforcing a lot of, you know, the stats. Like, you know, you see Myth and Balance have all 4 stats: health, pierce, damage, resist, you know, same with death even as well, right? They're not really enforcing these things. I'll be talking about that a little bit later on in this video. But every school is supposed to have like a function or 2 basically right now in the current state of the game. And they started going into stats with some of that identity, again, with like Myth having pierce and resist and stuff like that. But what happens, right, is they get so much stat. Again, I'm talking about a couple of schools here. They get so much health, resist, pierce, and they hit the damage cap that it's just to the point there's no trade-offs for playing some of those schools. Again, the schools I'm primarily talking about here are most notably Myth and Balance right now in the current state of the meta, and then Death and Fire as well, but those ones are a little bit less severe than the huge problem with Myth and Balance right now in the current state of the meta. In general as well, I think counter matchups are a little bit too hard to win. Now, keep in mind, I do not mind a challenge at all in the game right now. I actually like, you know, when the game likes to challenge me and stuff like that. However, I do not like the idea of, taking a better trade and still barely losing that trade simply because they're labeled as a quote-unquote hard counter or soft counter. This is my primary flaw with the Shambo, is before Shambo, it felt like, your play would matter for any of the matchups. You could pretty much beat anybody. Sure, you'd have a couple of hard matchups because a card or two, but now there's like 10 different cards you gotta worry about, 10 different counters, and it's just like they want one school to win. And I don't really like that. I would like my play to have a bit more of an impact on the game, personally. Next thing I want to bring up are treasure cards that are above DPP, and just in general, the TC ban system that KingsIsle has been doing for some time now. Now, the most notable and recent ones are obviously the Storm ban TCs that happened. You could also go back, a long time ago, before I even was around as a content creator. But a lot of TCs have been getting banned for some time now. I think Blue Phoenix as well is one. But basically, my point here is there are treasure cards that are getting banned for some schools and not for other ones. The best example I can give for this point would be treasure card Storm Owl. Now, this card was complained about at Exalted level primarily, and a little bit at max level as well. But when you do the math out on the boost that the TCs get between Storm Owl, Calendar, Old Lord of Winter, stuff like that, Treasure Card Owl actually was not the strongest one. I believe it was the second or third strongest treasure card. But they still banned TC Owl and not Calendar. And Calendar, if you don't know, I'm pretty sure I could probably get Shadow to give me the graph. I'm pretty sure Calendar is actually 2 or 3% more stronger than Storm Owl, at least according to the audit rules, So there clearly is some bias there, and my point here is there is just obviously unfair things in the game, right? You see Storm lose TC Owl, but then Myth has their Calendar still, which is literally just better than Owl, and I think that's why we see Myth being so good right now in this meta, is because Calendar is so broken, kind of like how old Storm Owl was. It's more broken now, the Calendar, with all the stats Myth has. Then you could also look at cards like Frostfang and all that other stuff. KingsIsle just really hasn't done a good job with banning a lot of the high pip cards that some of the obviously lower DPP schools have. They just kind of went for Storms cards and didn't really standardize any of the other schools, and I think, again, this could be talked about with Blue Phoenix as well. They didn't really standardize things across the board, and I think that is extremely unfair. And I feel like that's why right now people feel like Myth beats Storm in the current meta, because Myth has a better 10 pip hit than you do with better stats. So you feel like you cannot do anything when you're a damage school, but they have more health than you. I think that's kind of where some of the hopelessness comes from the Storm versus Myth matchup right now. Next up for this point, I want to briefly go over every school's stats. Obviously, this point would be pretty freaking long if I'm not very quick. Basically, on their Shambo, Storm, for example, is a health and damage school, right? So, why do I have the worst health then? Obviously, I don't have any resist. I'm not a resist school, right? And I still have really good Pierce. Now, my point about this here is actually going to be talking about the Pierce and the health identity of it. If KingsIsle takes away the Pierce from Storm, automatically that conflicts with Storm from the start of the game, right? Because Storm at the start of the game is the glass cannon school of Wizard101, right? That's a fact. And people max a Storm to be glass and to do damage. So, in my opinion, if they took away the Pierce from Storm right now, which, by the way, is not the highest Pierce, that's Fire and Myth. In my opinion, even if they gave Storm like 3,000 health or something, which I'm not saying to do that, I'm just saying with the health identity of Storm, they could very well do that. I think players would not be happy, in my opinion, because they wouldn't really feel happy about the school identity, because part of Storm is having the lower HP, but having the higher damage, right? You like that feeling. But if you feel like you're not, nuking your opponent or stuff like that, with KingsIsle taking away the Pierce, for example, I think that would be, really bad for the game, right? And the issue with this is that Storm isn't supposed to have that Pierce, right? Same thing with Balance, same thing with Death, right? But with Storm, it's a bit different because it's the glass cannon school of Wizard101. So I think this point right here perfectly highlights the, the system of King Sal being kind of stuck in the past and wanting to go forward in the future with her Shambo. This being said, even though Storm does have like okay stats aside from health and resist right now, it still is last place in the win rates somehow. Don't know how. I had like a 90% win rate on my Storm this season, but it still highlights Storm. If they enforce Shambo right now, Storms will feel like their school identity is gone, and they'll also inherently just make Storm worse as well. So it's kind of a tough part for King Sal to be in. Now on the Ice, obviously Ice I think is a resist school, and I think Health, I could be wrong. Actually no, I think it's just resist. I could be wrong. Correct me in the comments. Anyways, Ice is basically the resist and like shield school of Wiz, right? But again, you see Ice having like 170 damage while having like 70 to 80 base resist, you know? I'm actually just having a weird build on right now, but I have crazy offensive stats for having like a walking set shield and 12k health. Now you could be like, oh, DPP matters, right? But even then, Ice still gets a lot of Pierce, right? Storm and Fire only get 50 base resist, so you maybe get like 6% subtracted off of like the actual hit in Ice highs. But when a Storm and a Fire hit an Ice or a Myth, even for that matter, they have 20 to 30 resist left over, and that's kind of the issue, right? Its resist is unpunished right now in the meta, unless you play someone with literally 130, but even then, you're still losing the trades because of how good resist is. But my main complaint here is, I guess, Ice having too much damage and too much Pierce, right? Or, I guess, Storm and Fire not having enough resist, but personally, I wouldn't touch that on Storm and Fire. I would look more at the, Ice is having 170 damage and 42 Pierce or 44, 45, whatever it is, and maybe even at the Blimp Pet that gives 235 bubbles when no other school gets that in the game right now. Another example here on the Fire Wizard is Fire is a health and a Pierce school, but again, I have max damage cap. I have, obviously lower resist than other people, but it's still not that good. Okay health, not that good comparatively. Obviously, a lot of Pierce, decent crit block, and obviously the pips. Pip conversion, all the stats are really good with this update for every single school. But again, why is Fire hitting the damage cap so easily while having more health than one of the damage schools and, resist and stuff like that? It just doesn't really make any sense, right? And another issue with Fire as well is trap stack Fire for a long time now has been really, really powerful. And the only schools that can really deal with it is maybe Life, and I think that's about it, If a Fire wards to Storm with trap stack, the Storm just won't do enough damage because of how resist works right now, right? Even if a good Storm scales at a good time, it doesn't really matter because Fires can just fuel once into a Jhin, and then they have all the pressure throughout the game, and there's nothing you can do. But again, importantly here, I would be looking at the reason why Fire has a damage cap. Why is the damage not way lower when they're not a damage school in terms of Shambo? Now, I think Balance is the perfect example on what not to do with this school. I guess with Myth as well. I think Myth might be a better example. But, yeah, man. Balance this update. Okay, King Sal. Alright. Well, 11,000 health, damage cap, 10 billion resist, basically. Perfect accuracy, spectacular crit and block, and you get like 52 to 54 Pierce. I'm just missing a couple of gear pieces right now, and almost 100% conserve. Yeah, and if you're King Sal, you might be like DPP, but okay, y'all nerfed Mocking Spiel, but it's doing like 1,000 more than you would expect it to do with this update. And now it actually has some pretty good utility. So, again, I'm not really sure what the DPP argument is here, An unbuffed Mock does like 3 racks to like a Storm and Fire right now, and then their chat, like, a s'more literally does, like, the same as a mock right now in the meta. It's nuts. And a s'more is supposed to do, like, 100 or 2 more. That's what the card says. And it's a whole extra pip. Like, what? Balance is supposed to be a school of the jack of all trades, but the jack of all trades doesn't really matter when, again, you have the max damage possible, almost the max pierce possible, you have almost the max resist possible, almost the max health possible. It's just way too much of everything in general. And more notably, I feel like, I think the damage and pierce need to go down. I wouldn't mind the health and resist so much, but the damage and pierce need to go down by at least like 20, 25 damage, and maybe like 5 pierce to 10 pierce, I'd think, because right now it is just so powerful, and the DPP obviously doesn't really matter, as you can tell by playing the game, right? Myth is also a very, very good example on what not to do if you're a king style developer. This would be give every school every single stat, you know? So again, with Myth right now, again, I'm like missing a socket or whatever on my theme here. But yeah, pretty much 10k health, max damage cap, you have resist, perfect everything, crit block, you know, everything. You can actually get 61 pierce on a Myth with 180 damage, but I just don't have the current build on right now. I need to remake my pet, basically. But yeah, you can get 61, 62 pierce with 183 damage, 10k health, and, you know, a ton of resist, no problem. And on top of that, you have cards that do like 2k base on a shield gambit, you know, Yaga, which pretty much does the same as Rasolka right now in the meta. It does like 100 less with a trade or something. It's pretty stupid. Again, the issue here is the fact that Myth has obviously more health, you know, it has damage cap, it has really good resist, it has a crap ton of pierce, it has, you know, health, pierce, resist, and damage, right? All 4 of the Shambo stats. And I think another culprit we should be looking at is death. Now, I only have Boon on my pet, so I am missing like 7 damage, but you know, death has like 11,000 health, you know, I think I'm missing a piece of gear, 11k health, damage cap, really good resist, really good crit block, you know, like 53 pierce as well, and like, there's just nothing you give up, you know, there's nothing you give up to have all that health, all that freaking resist, all that pierce, all that damage, you know, and again, the devs say DPP, but when deaths are piercing everybody's resist with max damage cap and more health, and they actually keep like 20 resist, it's obviously really freaking good. So for the case of death, I just think they have too much health and way too much pierce right now. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to talk about life. Now I will say that life healing should be better right now in the current meta, but life stats are actually not bad at all, you know. I've done a couple of games on my life this season, having a lot of fun, by the way, on the Life Wizard. But, yeah, life is ridiculous right now. You know, I hit a Myth through like a minus 90, a brace, and a 70 shield, and I still did like 4k without a Shrike or like anything. So, the life stats are still pretty freaking dumb. But I'd say ice and life stats are almost close to being balanced, in my opinion. I think the only issue with this is the fact, again, life has resist. Obviously, they have health. That's with Shambo. That matches it. But why does life have anywhere near the damage cap if they have health, if they have resist? You know, it's still a lot of pierce for the amount of defense you get, right? And the piece you get. So with life's case and ice's case, I just think they have like 30 to like 25 more damage than they're supposed to have right now. And life obviously has like way too much resist. I'm not sure why it has this much when it's not a resist school. But yeah, that's really all I have to say in this video. I just really, you know, I mean, I've had a lot of fun this meta, to be fair, but I'm kind of burnt out on it right now. There's obviously the issues with Betrayal and Delusion as well in the meta, and there's obviously, you know, Elo as well. There's a lot that's going on right now, and, you know, I feel like a lot of the PvP community is just not happy, and even the casuals, you know, they can't really do anything fun or, you know, that exciting right now in the meta, because you're dying in 1 to 2 shots by literally every single school, you know? it's not just like a death or a storm that's two tapping you. It's literally a balance. It's literally a fire. It's literally a life. It's literally like it's literally everybody two tapping you right now. It's not just the damage schools. So I think that's really what is contributing to a lot of the issues with PvP at max level right now. I do think KingsAl can fix things if they try, and I think the game will be better personally in the future. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to leave a like, rating, and subscribe if you made it this far. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching, and take care, guys.